I'm Owen Bigland. This is the Inside Edge video blog. Okay, let's give you the latest updates on the Bank of Canada interest rate hikes in the current Vancouver market. So we just got what looks to be our last interest rate hike here, 25 basis points a few days ago. Looks like the Bank of Canada is saying for now that they're going to pause. That's going to be it for the foreseeable future here. And as I'll talk about in a minute, we could perhaps see some reductions in the interest rate later this year and into next year for sure. So, this is, good news, I guess, if you're a buyer or a seller. I think, the market, as I've been telling you guys, took a pretty good slowdown this past summer. Normally we slow down in July and August. It's just seasonal. And I went away pretty much for the entire summer this year. I was in Europe and California. I was gone for almost 7 weeks. But when I got back in September, I kind of sandbagged some listings for the fall once Labor Day hits, and the market still continued to be quite slow. I had sales, but traffic through my listings was low, and for good reason. A lot of buyers just decided to stay on the sidelines. At that point, we had about, I think, 4 or 5 hikes. More to come. The Fed in the United States and the Bank of Canada were talking extremely hawkish that we're going to keep rates higher for longer, and brace yourself because we've got more interest rates to come. So that was the signal for most buyers, a lot of buyers anyways, not most, but a lot, to let's just stay on the sideline and wait for a little bit more dovish picture here. At least wait for the Bank of Canada to say, okay, we're going to pause for a while, because we don't know how much higher they're going to go. So last fall was was one of the slowest on record, and I can speak from experience with this. I had a lot of listings, some I sold. It depended on what I was selling. Good 1 and 2 bedrooms priced under $1 million. Those were moving, but traffic was much less. Interest was much less than it should have been for a fall market. This past, then in mid-December, I ended up taking a number of listings off the market and going away for Christmas, and then I would relist them in the new year. So now that we've had this last interest rate hike, at least for now, now the variable as we speak, I believe, is now currently at 5.67%. Remember, at this time last year, we were at about 1.3% on the variable. So talk about a shock to the system. I'm under the belief that I think the Bank of Canada probably should have paused early last fall after number 5. Because a lot of people don't realize that for every interest rate hike they do, whether that's a quarter point or 50 basis points or even 100 basis points, apparently, according to what I'm reading, is it takes about 18 months for that to get filtered through to the economy before it'll have any impact on inflation, because that's what we're trying to do here, bring inflation down. They want to bring it down to 2%, which is the rate that their target rate. So it takes about 18 months to filter that through. I was under the belief, as were a lot of other people, that maybe we should just give it a little time. After 5 hikes, let's just give it 6 months or 8 months, and let's see where inflation goes with what you've already given us. But they continued to go on. They wanted to make sure that they tamped it down permanently, that if they didn't do enough, inflation might go down, but then raise its ugly head again later on. So we're now at 5.67. And it sounds like it's going to be a pause here for the foreseeable future. I'm also reading National Bank, a couple of banks just came out saying that perhaps they're expecting, National Bank is, a 50 basis point reduction in the fourth quarter of this year, and they're predicting a full 1% reduction in 2024. And I believe TD and a couple of the other banks are kind of echoing that same thought. So I can tell you from the front lines here, we're into February now. I've already had a couple of sales. I can tell you, I'll give you a frontline story here of a loft unit I had downtown. I listed this in early November. Nice unit. Could have used an update, a refresh though, a renovation. It was about 13 years ago that they did a freshen up to this unit, so it was due for some renovations for sure. Listed it in early November, and I did not have much action on this unit. It was a good unit, and we were priced pretty well, around $900, a little over $900 a square foot for concrete. This stayed on the market. I reduced it once. Stayed on the market through until mid-December. I had an open house in mid-November. I think I had 2 or 3 parties through. It was the odd call. I'd get 1 call a week on it, maybe 1 showing, maybe 2 in a good week. Pretty low interest in this. Took it off the market December the 17th because I went away for the holidays. I relisted it around January the 8th of this year. And I can tell you it was night and day. Even though we still had another hike coming from the Bank of Canada, I can tell you that buyers were out there. Much more interest. I had an open house the opening weekend and I had about 13 parties through. I was getting 4 or 5 private showings every week for the first couple of weeks. Long story short, I sold that unit last week. So a big difference already I'm seeing in buyers coming out. I think now that the Bank of Canada is going to pause for now, will be a green light for some buyers to come out. Talking to my mortgage guys, I think what's happening and what I've talked about many times in the Vancouver market is, buyers have been on the sidelines since the summer. And it's kind of like I often refer to it as the Vancouver real estate market is a real beast. It's like holding a balloon underwater. And after 5 or 6 months, buyers need to buy. There's a lot of people that need to buy. They've been pre-approved. They've moved to the city. Maybe they're renting. They've got the down payment. They're pre-approved. The big problem these days is there's nothing for sale. So that's going to be, again, like I keep beating a dead horse here, is going to be the real story here moving into the spring. Do we get listings? Because I have 4 or 5 buyers right now that we're waiting for product. Everything from detached to townhomes to condos. Investors and principal residence buyers I've got. But I have very little to sell them. So we'll see what the inventory levels do. But it really is like holding a balloon underwater. There's buyers out there, and I think there's pent-up demand. Now that the interest rates have paused here, interest rate hikes, I think we're going to start to see more buyers out there. This is their green light. Talking to my mortgage brokers, I think what most people are doing is locking in a 2-year fixed. And last week, I understand that several of the big banks just reduced their 2-year fixed slightly. Apparently right now you can get a 2-year fixed for around 5.45, 5.5%, so a little less than the variable rate right now. So I think what most people are doing is plugging their nose. I gotta buy, I'm pre-approved, I'll lock in a 2-year rate at 5.45 or whatever, and hopefully in 2 years, at this time, 2 years from now, I can get a better rate. And according to what many of the analysts are saying, they probably will. Perhaps even later this year, a 50-point reduction, and then next year, pretty much everyone I'm seeing is calling for perhaps about a full 1% reduction in rates. So we'll see where it goes. A couple other quick little things I'll talk to you guys about here today. There is some good value out there. I'll talk about luxury market here in a minute. There's just not a lot of inventory. But this loft unit I just sold downtown, again, listed it in early November, got it sold last week, did 2 reductions to it. This finally sold at $820 a square foot. This is a 26-year-old concrete downtown. The strata's in pretty good order. It really is. Healthy contingency fund. The unit does need pretty much a complete reno. Kitchen, bathrooms, flooring, all that good stuff. The buyer for this unit is probably going to, well, they are going to reno later this summer and probably spend $100K. But still, $820 a square foot for concrete. Geez, you guys, I've talked to you guys before. Anything under $1,000 a square foot is pretty darn good. Even $1,100 I consider to be pretty good when you consider that all the new product coming online from this point on, which I'll talk to you in a minute here, is priced at $1,700, $1,800, $2,000 and up a square foot. So it's going to be pretty tough to ever buy anything moving forward at $820 a square foot, which this buyer just did. Sure, they're going to put $100K into it. I think it's pretty good value. I really do. On the luxury front, I've told you guys I'm going to do more blogs on this. If you just sold a detached home, let's say on the west side or the east side or in Richmond or Burnaby, if you've got a budget of $2.2 million to $3.5 million, I know that's not a small budget, and are looking for a new home, there are starting to really get some good value out there in this newly built luxury condo market. Again, priced from 2.2 to up to 3.7. So if that's you, give me a call and you're ready to go. You know, there's some units. I've been doing my homework on these. I've now toured probably about 13 or 14 units over the last couple of weeks for a couple of reasons. I've got a buyer coming in from Toronto later this spring, and his budget is in and around the upper twos, wants a downtown luxury condo. Perfect. So I'm pre-screening some of these newer stratas that I have just gotten completion to get acclimated to them. But I'm also doing it, I'm curious myself. They're new strata. I want to see the stratas, tour, see the finishings, look at the amenities, and have a look for myself. I've also got a buyer that I'm going to be listing a condo in Cole Harbour, priced in and around 1.7, who wants to move up to something around 2.5. And these are the type of product he's looking for. So I'm just doing some pre-screening for them as well as for myself. But there's some good value out there. I told you guys last year, you know, some cracks are starting to show. You know, the difference between that market and the tangible market is that there's inventory in this market. Unlike the tangible market, there's nothing for sale. Keeping prices pretty solid. That's the perils of buying pre-sale if you change your mind. Once you get occupancy, there's 10, 15, 20 units for sale in some of these stratas. Plus, in some cases, the developers are holding back units that aren't even on the MLS. They'll put a few of them on, but they have more in reserve. So we could have 30, 35 units in some of these stratas. So that's the difference. We've got competition. They're getting in front of each other and the prices are going down. So there is some good value. Now again, these would be your dream home. This isn't for investment, these type of product. Too good to rent. The cap rate wouldn't be good. So these would be someone who's looking for a dream home. They've sold their detached home. They want to downsize, live downtown in a luxury condo that they're going to live and enjoy for the next 8, 10, 15 years or longer. I can tell you, you buy one of these units, there's a few gems out there that I'm keeping an eye on for my client coming from Toronto. You know, and the other thing is, they're at the price they're currently at, many of them have been reduced several times. In a lot of cases, they're saying that GST has been paid, which it has, but of course there's a double dip on that, so that's great. Hopefully I can write the contract inclusive of GST, which I'm going to do. And there's still room on these prices because I'm keeping a pretty close tab on it. Nobody has really pulled the trigger yet on one of these $3.5 million units. They're sitting still. Days on market are building up. And you don't know, we're not privy to all the circumstances of the seller. We're going to find out pretty soon. Some of them are starting to drop prices pretty quick. They're holding these units. Interest rates now, they're probably on a variable rate. There's going to be a bit of desperation in that market for sure. So if you're in the market for a new luxury condo, give me a call. There's going to be some good opportunity. I tell you, you buy one of these units this spring, keep it for 10 years, it's going to look pretty good. And some of these are just beautiful. I'm really impressed with a couple of these buildings. Finishings, the amenities. There's a number of them that are southwest corner, high floor, so you get sun all day on the balcony. Really good units. Last thing on that topic, though, just a little off topic, but I've probably looked at about 13 of these units. Cole Harbour and a couple of buildings there, and then a couple of buildings in and around downtown and the West End here. Interesting thing here. Several of them had open houses, public open houses, which is a little different, odd. I wouldn't do it, but every seller is different on how they work. But a $3.5 million luxury unit, generally, if that was my listing, I would not have a public open on that. What I would do is I would have a open Saturday, Sunday, 2 to 4, by appointment only. So the realtor would have to book a showing with me, a private showing, but I'll be there from 2 to 4 on Saturday or Sunday. It's by appointment only. It's not public. I don't have a sandwich board down on the street to come on up and look at my $3.5, $3.7 million condo. But there are some out there. I looked at a few in the upper $2 million range to low threes that had public opens. The rest, of course, the majority were by appointment only. So I called the realtor and booked a private showing. The ones that were public opens, of course, none of them were the listing realtor, which kind of surprised me. You're listing a $3.5 million unit. I would expect to see the listing realtor who has an intimate knowledge of this unit and can answer questions. But it wasn't. It was I don't know if they were a non-licensed assistant, which you're not supposed to do, but who knows. or just a team member with little experience. The surprising thing was, on all but 2 of the private showings I booked, again, was not the main listing realtor who I was expecting to see. It was a junior associate who did not have a whole lot of information on this unit. It's funny, the 2 guys that I know have been in this business a long time and are very successful. Didn't surprise me, those 2 were there to show the unit to me. And these are very successful guys, been in the business a long time like myself. And of course, I wasn't surprised. That's why they're successful. They're hands-on, these guys, as I would have been as well. So, if you're Mr. Seller listing a 2.5, 3, 3.5, $4 million condo, gee, if that was my listing, I would be hands-on 100% for every single showing. And, when I list these units, even when I'm listing, I'm hands-on even for my lower priced units. Sometimes my sellers are surprised. If it's not me, which is going to be me 80, 85, 90% of the time, it'll be my wife, who's also an experienced realtor as well. It'll be one of the 2 of us, but most of it will be me on most of my listings, especially in the luxury market, 100%. I'll be the only one. But, when you're selling a $3-4 million home, you've got to know everything about that building, the developer. These are very high-tech units. The heating and cooling systems, how they work, the appliances, the fixtures. You want to know a lot about this building. When I list a condo, especially luxury condos that have a lot of features and amenities, I have an elevator pitch, as most successful realtors do. I'm a salesman. You're paying me to sell the sizzle and to highlight the benefits of this luxury condo. So as soon as we get into meet in the foyer and get into the elevator, I'm going to be talking to that listing realtor and his client. I'm going to be selling it. When we get into an elevator, especially on these luxury buildings, one of these buildings, they've got 8 elevators. They've got 3 express elevators that only go to the top, I think, 22 or 23 floors. High speed Otis elevators that will whisk you from the ground floor to the 52nd floor in about 30 seconds. That's a selling feature. That's something that a lot of buildings don't have that you should be pointing out. When you get inside, what is the heating and cooling system? Is it an individual heat pump in the unit, or is it a central system? Who makes the cabinets? These are Sandero cabinets from Italy. The appliances are Miele or Sub-Zero. This is the elevator pitch you want to do. And then, of course, if you got a little more time, you'll mention some of the amenities. Then I usually let the realtor with his client do his thing. I don't go in, follow them around, and this is the bedroom and this is the kitchen. You leave them be for a little while. But if they have questions, you have to be able to answer these. When I list whether it's a luxury condo or a $700,000 one bedroom, usually in most cases, if it's an older strata, downtown, established strata, I've usually had sales in there, which is great. So what I do before I list it, I dig up my notes on it. I keep detailed notes, the features of the building and all that good stuff. And then of course I have to update my strata documents, depending on when the last sale I had. If it's a newer building, like some of these new strata, I have no clue about these buildings yet. They're brand new. They've only had occupancy since the summer. So I'm going to order the strata documents, what is available. I'm going to also read the bylaws, and then I'm going to have my seller, hopefully, give me a detailed tour of the building. And whatever else I can't find out, I'm going to go online on the builder's website and put it all together. Probably takes me 6 to 7 hours on a luxury condo. That's how long it would take me to prepare and put what I call a cheat sheet, because it's hard to remember all of it. I have a little cheat sheet with all the questions that a typical realtor is going to ask me. That's what you're paying for when you're selling one of these units, folks. And gee, I've talked about this before. All realtors are not created equal. And if you're hiring a realtor to sell a luxury condo at $2.5, $3, $4 million, man. That realtor that you're hiring should be 100% hands-on with a unit like that. You have to be. It's a sophisticated sale and a sophisticated buyer. Lots of questions, lots of things that you're going to have to answer. Plus, you want to sell the sizzle on these things, and it's easy. In these buildings, there is so much sizzle to talk about. Wine lockers, billiards rooms. One of these buildings now has a fitting room. It's a room with mirrors that you can bring in a stylist if you want. You know, a lot of people in this price category have personal shoppers, you know, that put together wardrobes for them. It's got a room where you can go and try stuff on. It's all well lit. It's got mirrors all over the place. It's incredible. These are things that you're going to want to sell that you wouldn't have in a typical condo. And why, if you're hiring a realtor for this, you better be the realtor you're hiring better be hands-on and selling the sizzle with this. That's what you're paying them. $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 is the commission on this, including the buying side commission. So interview realtors for the job, make sure they're hands-on, and make sure you have a look at what their marketing program involves. But stay tuned for more updates as we move into spring. I'll give you guys more updates on where the market's at, what I'm seeing from the front lines here, and I'll keep you up to date on it. I'm Owen Bigland. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.